There are no lectures in this course. Can you tell us a little bit about the thinking behind that?
That's largely student-driven. Back in 1989, I was a grad student then here at the University of Illinois. A professor named Jerry Ewell and another professor here, Horacio Porta, became very interested in using Mathematica to build courseware. And the very first courses I actually taught the very first semester was offered. And the very first semester we gave introductory lectures. We had lectures in the early days. And an interesting phenomenon happened. After about 2 weeks, I walked into the classroom expecting to give another lecture, and there were no students there at all. And I was sort of worried, I got that sinking feeling. It's like, oh my gosh, everybody's abandoned me. But I walked down the hall to the computer lab, which was associated with the course. And all the students were there, and they were engaged in the material. And I go, did you forget that we had a lecture? And they said, well, no. Your lectures are really not helping us, which sort of, but I explored it a little bit, and what I found out is that when I lectured to them before they had any experience at all with the material, they didn't have a basis for understanding. It was only afterwards when they walked into the computer lab and actively engaged the mathematics by doing, computer experiments and visualizations and, talking with each other about the material. That's where the mathematics gelled. And so, my lectures didn't help them, but after they had engaged in that experience, they no longer required me to lecture to them. So the clouds parted and the rays shone down, and we suddenly realized that instead of lecturing to them, which basically answers a lot of questions that they haven't asked yet, we get them into an active learning environment where they can directly engage with the material. We can help them when they encounter difficulties. We can engage them in discussions. We can facilitate their learning in lots of different ways that don't involve direct instruction. So we basically stopped lecturing soon after that, and we've never felt a need to go back to it. There's one asterisk in that, by the way. In a typical 3-hour course, the first hour of a new lesson, they would work on their homework and engage the materials in a computer setting. We would pull them into a classroom and have a discussion halfway through. Not so much a lecture. I might write something on the board, but it wasn't a very formal presentation of material. It was just throw up a diagram, write some words and notes, and then use that as a basis for discussion. And then after that discussion, they would go back and finish up their homework in the computer lab in the 3rd hour, and then we would repeat that cycle. That's where we found out that the discussions were really good places to help students understand what is it that I need to be pulling out of these computer lessons. Because our courses have pencil and paper tests. And it's really a challenging skill to interact with something on a computer and then be able to pull that away and meaningfully, be able to answer pencil and paper type questions. And so those discussions were meant to facilitate that transition, because that was actually an environment where there were no computers around. It was just us talking about the material. And what grew out of that was something that we call the literacy sheets. The literacy sheets are the types of questions that we expect students to be able to answer away from the computer. And those also form the basis for our exam assessments.